Hi, Andrea. So nice to see you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Andrea. Good morning, Henry. Good morning, Preeti. I found Jimuna Jaya. Good morning, JT. Good morning, Ajay. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning. Sarah has a devotee name. I forget. Okay. Jagadish Ranima is coming in. Good morning, Vraja Lila and Ekavira Prabhus, our dear presenters today. Welcome to our morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're all excited for hearing about Krishna from them. And please participate actively in class. Kavira Prabhu and Vraja Prabhu are open to hear your contributions and questions and corrections. Yeah, right?
That's right.
They are surrendered devotees, always eager to it's for a devotional exchange. Okay, so Ekavira Prabhu, Vraja Lila Prabhu, the floor is yours. Hare Krishna.
Haribol Prabhu, thank you so very much. Thank you.
Yes, we're grateful to be here all the time with our family here at the Bhakti Center.
Yes, as always, we're so excited. It's really sweet this time of the year, this changing of season, to be with everyone. We're looking forward to talking today about the heavenly planet.
And of course, this is we're approaching Kartik month here and throughout the world, and it's especially special here in Gitanagari, since this is Lord Damodar's terrain, and this is the month of Damodar. And today, as we express, we're grateful to be here. At the same time, we're torn. Vraja Lila, just this past week, we spent at least 5 days in Florida with her mother, who just recently departed. And just last night, we received a message from one of the devotees here in our community. And we just lost one of our youth here in the community last night who passed. And so today's class we're doing in their honor.
My mom, her name was Rose, and Damayanti here in Gitanagari. So today we're praying and hoping that we can share something that can help us and help everyone. And most importantly, as Ekavira Prabhu said, this is an offering for them. So today we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 18, Text 22. And I will read the Sanskrit and the English. I don't see the Sanskrit, however, I have it here. Yadidam kupa magnaya bhavato darshanam mama na brahmanami me bhavata hashtagraho mahabhuja kachasya barhasyasya sapadhyam ashapampura. Hare Krishna. So the translation of this verse: because of falling in the well, I met you. Indeed, this has been arranged by Providence. After I cursed Kacha, the son of the learned scholar Brihaspati, he cursed me by saying that I would not have a Brahmana for a husband. Therefore, O mighty One, there is no possibility of my becoming the wife of a Brahmana. Srila Prabhupada's purport: Kacha, the son of the learned celestial priest Brihaspati, had been a student of Shukracharya, from whom he had learned the art of reviving a man who died untimely. This art, called Mrita Sanjeevani, was especially used during wartime. When there was a war, soldiers would certainly die untimely. But if a soldier's body was intact, he could be brought to life again by this act of Mitra Sanjeevani. This art was known to Shukracharya and many others, and Kacha, the son of Brihaspati, became Shukracharya's student to learn it. Devayani desired to have Kasha as her husband, but Kasha, out of regard for Shukracharya, looked upon the Guru's daughter as a respectable superior and therefore refused to marry her. Devayani angrily cursed Kasha by saying that although he had learned the art of Mrita Sanjeevani from her father, it would be useless. When cursed in this way, Kasha retaliated by cursing Devayani never to have a husband who was a Brahmana. Because Devayani liked Yayati, who was a Kshatriya, she requested him to accept her as his bona fide wife. Although this would be Pratiloma Vivaha, a marriage between the daughter of a high family and the son of a lower family. She explained that this arrangement was made by Providence. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh, I'm sorry. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyana Gyana Shalakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarabhutam Parijam Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Saharam Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Mustate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrinda Ganeshwari Vishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya
Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Vishesha Sunyavadi Pastyatya Adeshatarine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Namane Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Ishtatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namane
Jai Shri Krishna
Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Bol. Okay, Ka. You want to share some things with the devotees?
See the verse.
Okay, the text again. You want to see? Okay. So while Ekavira look at the text, we want to, okay, text 22, go ahead. Yeah, this verse is quite interesting and intriguing, studying this ninth canto, because it's so full of excitement and intrigue. You know, it's like, it's like studying the lives of people, even here on this planet. However, here we're studying the lives, or we're reading from the lives and learning from the lives of these great personalities that are living on the heavenly planets and some of the different, activities that they go through. So, yeah, Ekavira says something on this verse you wanted to share.
And we won't go into much of the past time because we know that the devotees have shared this through the previous verses. However, we touch on certain points relevant to this verse. And then also, we'd like to have some time to speak about our experience with Vraja Lila and also the wonderful soul, the beautiful devotee in our community, the departed Damayanti. First of all, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks about one particular point, the Mrita Sanjeevani. One of these mystic potencies, one of the potencies of Shukracharya. This is a very powerful Brahmana, and Brahmana of the demons. And of course, he had one of his premier disciples, Bali Maharaj, and we know the pastime of his interaction with Bali Maharaj. And he actually used this particular city when Bali Maharaj was engaged in combat and reviving Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj expressed that in Bhagavatam. And we find that this city is something that is aspired by so many persons in the material world, developing these mystic potencies. And there are 18 main mystic cities and 8 are primary, and then there's some other secondary offshoots of mystic cities, like the Lagima city, smaller than the smallest, and all of the mystic cities. I remember one of the other cities, Sachi Sai Baba, I remember, would manifest things in his hand. And,
yeah.
And yes, these particular cities, like walking on water. There was actually a pastime with one boatman and his son desired to actually develop this city, mystic cities, or study yoga. And so he went into the Himalayas and he studied for many, many years. And he came back to the village, and his father was there, and his father had grown old. And his father at that point in time was losing his vision, and he couldn't really see so clearly, but he saw this yogi, and the yogi was approaching him. He was very frail and had a long beard. And the yogi spoke to him and said, "Father, Father." And then he realized that was his son had left many years ago. And he said, "Father, I just wanted to express appreciation for you and thank you for allowing me to go and study and develop in mystic cities, and let me show you what I've learned." And his father said, oh yes, show me. And then his son began to walk on water. He developed that Lagima city, lighter than the lightest, and began to walk on water. And his father looked at him and he said, "You went away, and all these years, this is what you learned? You could have given me 5 paisa and I could have taken you across the water. What's the purpose of this?" And so therefore, these particular cities that are there, one can aspire and do all types of austerities to develop these mystic potencies. But what is actually the purpose of this? In this particular case, Shukracharya was doing this to revive the demons. And that was one of the reasons why the demons were so feared, so to speak, by the demigods. Because when they engaged in battle, Shukracharya would revive the demons. When the demigods would kill a demon, then the next thing you know, the demon would have his life again. Whereas Brihaspati was not reviving the demigods when they were actually met their demise on the battlefield. So what is the purpose of these mystic potencies?
Yeah, and one of the things I was thinking about, Ekavira, is how sometimes somebody could say, they could ask, well, what is that you're saying that somebody can revive the dead, like especially in the modernity, many people don't have that understanding of ancient culture and what these yogis, the powers they had. However, even if we study history, and we study the history of, let's say, the Egyptians, and how the Egyptians, they used to mummify the bodies, especially of their hierarchy, because they had that belief system that actually you could revive the body. So even archaeologists, they're still finding mummified dead bodies thousands and thousands of years, because that understanding was there. And that's not, that's still, within our understanding, our history, we can understand this. So it's not so far out, to think that, Shukracharya had that power that he could do that. yeah, because it's one of the, as Ekavira Prabhu was saying, it's one of the 18 mystic cities, and yeah, it was commonly used. However, Shukacharya is really powerful guru, so it's not to be taken lightly that he had that amazing power to do that. Especially when you hear the story of Kacha, which I'm sure that you have all heard, that how he did that. Kacha was in his stomach, and how he brought Kacha out in his stomach. It was pretty amazing that he had so much power, and that his daughter, Devayani. Damayanti is the young girl that left her body last night. She left last night around 9:25. Yeah, but Devayani, his daughter, she was also quite a powerful young woman in her way. Of course, she took so much shelter of her father, which is what ancient culture teaches us, that the daughter is protected by the father. And in this case, Damayanti was really protected by her father, because she would go to him whenever she didn't like something, whatever was going on that she did not like. Yeah. So we know the story, right, of what happened with Damayanti and how she met Yayati.
So anyway, the point in regards to the mystic cities, we'll come back to that later, because it's quite relevant in our aspirations and our development of bhakti. And I remember when I first came to Krishna consciousness, well, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Something that's relevant in this purport also is this quality of Prabhupada is speaking here about this when Damayanti, Damayanti is so much in my consciousness. Damayanti, when she was in the well and Yayati came and took her out of the well, that's a famous adage for grihastas, right? You were in the well. So there's a story about the well. So she was really thrown in the well by Shamista, her friend, of course, because, Devayanti spoke very harshly to Shamista when she saw that Shamista had put on her sari. However, when Yayati, in the well, held her hand to bring her out of the well, that in ancient culture was very significant, because if you touched a girl's hand, that means you're married in previous cultures, in ancient times, and that's not so relevant in our times, in modernity. In these times of modernity, it's not very relevant at all. If you touch someone's hand, that means you got to marry them. And so King Yayati, he had to marry Devayani, because he had touched her hand by pulling her out of the well. And so as we hear this pastime, we learn that Devayati, she was a Brahmana girl. And so the two Sanskrit word that's used in this purport by Srila Prabhupada is this first one, but that Ekavira is talking about, the mystic cities. And then the second one, I think it's called Pratiloma Vivaha. This is the kind of marriage where for a Kshatriya male to marry a Brahmana girl was not so much accepted, because Brahmanas married Brahmanas, Kshatriyas married Kshatriyas, and so of course this marriage was not so much. It happened. Shukracharya made it happen. However, it was not so much normal. And I was thinking about how this is so irrelevant in one sense for us as practitioners or aspiring practitioners of bhakti, because in our own life, Ekavira Prabhu and myself, Ekavira has more tendencies of like a Vaishya, more of those Vaishya tendencies. and probably mixed, with some chacha. And it's also mixed. I mean, Prabhupada says in this age, everybody is a Sudra. However, we do have some tendencies. And he also has some Brahminical tendencies. And we know about Bhagavad explains these, what are the qualities of a Brahmana. However, in my case, I tend to have more kind of qualities, or I tend to have more tendencies. I don't know if I don't have qualities, but I tend to have more tendencies of a Brahmana in that I really like to read the sastras. I really love to sit and read Srila Prabhupada's books, and I really love to share Srila Prabhupada's books, with others. So in that sense, we can understand like we kind of have different tendencies. Yet tomorrow we are going to celebrate our almost 30th wedding anniversary. So, so just to show that when we practice bhakti, so much of these is so irrelevant, because as bhakti practitioners, our goal is to please Guru and Krishna. That is the foundation of a bhakti practitioner, is how to have the shelter and how to have the focus of Guru and Krishna in the center of a married relationship. So being Brahmana or being Kshatriya, although there are qualities for sure that it's important to be aware of, it's not so important. And in our Grihastha Vision team, we do specify premarital counseling. And in premarital counseling, we do ask we have like a list of 100 questions before someone can actually marry, and those 100 questions, we ask them this premarital counseling so that they can understand together some of the differences that they may have before they get into marriage. And in this way, they can understand their tendencies. Because yes, we are although we're Sudras, we do have still some of these tendencies by our nature. Yeah, Eka?
Yes, and as Vraja Lila expressed, that our particular tendencies, and in my personal case, as we introspect, there is a Vaishya tendency. At the same time, when we introspect, we also can consider what our tendency is based upon what actually inspires us. That which, we can get out of the bed and we look forward to each and every day. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly say that bicycle activity is not what inspires me. I actually do it more so out of necessity and in the service. And I have the tendency more so to actually be in the association of the devotees and to hear and chant like you do. Mm. And I'm most happy when we're in the Holy Dham and we're, engaged in kirtans and hearing all day long with, devotees in Vrindavan or Mayapur. And so this is something that is characteristic of many persons' qualities in the age of Kali Yuga. There is the mixed tendencies. And in many cases, people don't know what tendencies they actually have. Yeah. And so it's important to actually understand what our tendencies are, because this is kind of like one of the first stages or initial phases in understanding how to actually be cured. Awareness of the actual, like naturopathy, of course, one of the first stages we try to understand what is the actual source of the problem. And so when we become aware of the disease, then we can actually focus more on that particular point and those things that help us to develop a higher taste to move from that particular tendency.
So yeah, so I was thinking, since Prabhu was saying he wanted us to interact with all of you. Well, then I was wondering, maybe one of you or two of you or three of you might want to share, like what tendencies do you have? Even though Prabhupada says, yes, we're all Sudras in this age. And at the same time, we do have some tendencies, and we certainly have some qualities. So I wanted to check in. Maybe one of you might want to share. What tendencies have you observed in yourself in terms of when you look at the Varnas, being a Kshatriya, being a Vaishya, being a Sudra, being a Brahmana? A Brahmana, the tendency is to want to study, to give in charity, to, be renounced in some ways. These are some of the qualities. Narada Muni actually explains that a real Brahmana is not so much interested in sense gratification. A true Brahmana, Kshatriya needs to protect, that there has that more of that mood of protection and, seeing how to make sure everything is organized. And then the Vaishya is like here in Gitanagari, we have the cows for sure that needs protection. And then there's agriculture, and the Vaishya is making sure that all of those things are taken care of and that there's income coming in to make sure everything goes on nicely. And then, the Sudras, they follow the other Varnas. So, what tendencies might you have? Just a little curious, if you've thought about it.
Hare Krishna, Vraja Lila, humble basis to both of you. Thank you so much for coming on to this class to share your wisdom and also your hearts. I'm very glad that you shared with us about your mother, Rose Prabhu, and Damayanti Prabhu's as well. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your tributes to them, because those kind of sharings, I feel, are the ones where I learn the most.
Yes. Yes.
And thank you for sharing about your 30-year anniversary. I have to admit that I turned to Paul, my husband, and I was like, I hope that's going to be us too. And he's like, it will. So it just gives me hope. And it goes into your question where we also have like those complementary things. I feel like Paul is very much about like, he's focused on getting the income and protecting the family and having us have like stability. He's very logical, and like, when I'm going off on emotional things, he's just like, okay, let's look at this logically. And so it's like, I don't know if that's like the Vaishya of like, just very like, let's be practical. Let's look at the practical things. And then he was saying that he thinks I have more of the Brahminical things, because I love like worshiping our little baby deities, as I call them, and reading the books and going to classes. And, I really love everything to do with spirituality, have forever. But he says that I'm also very Vaishya in the sense that I also like to very organize. Like I want everything to be organized. I like to plan everything, I like to kind of see. So I think it's very interesting to kind of see how in those couples that, Hare Krishna.
Paul
wanted to be part of the conversation.
That's right.
That when couples can have Krishna at the center, we can balance each other out, even if we have those kind of disparate tendencies. We have that together, and the love for each other as well. I feel like, but that also I feel, in Krishna consciousness, we want to try to focus that that's coming from Krishna. That if we really have that deep love for each other, it's a spiritual love.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that,
Yes.
Andrea. Because you see in this pastime that they're cursing and just counter cursing, and they're Brahmin by birth. She's a Brahmin by birth. Shukacharya is a Brahmin. Yayati, he's this great king, of course, and Kacha, and then you have Kacha, who, went through all this process to just learn from Shukacharya. I mean, it's just studying him is a whole, just kind of a big meditation to understand Kacha's mood and how he actually learned that science. And we see how, when Prabhupada talks about this mood of Brahman in terms of this pastime, that it's really related to the heavenly planets. And we can see the difference as devotees, when we look at the I'm so sorry to hear of this unexpected loss. Oh, yes. Thank you. I'm going to share something about that in a minute. When we look at devotee life and we look at the tendencies we may have, that some tendencies may be there. However, what is the center, as you shared, is the fact that we have Krishna in our center, Guru and Krishna in our center. Yeah, that's the huge difference.
That's the essential difference. Mm-hmm. And that's the main takeaway from this verse that Vraja Lila and I actually have, that one can have the qualities of a Brahmin, but yet there are certain tendencies that keep us locked into samsara. And that's what we find in this verse, the cursing and counter cursing. And we find that Prahlad Maharaj, he expresses in the 7th canto about the Brahmana, qualities of the Brahmana and qualities of the devotee as he's speaking to his father. And he expresses that if a Brahmana can actually have the 12 qualities of, qualities of a Brahmana, but yet adverse to the service to the Lord, and this was relevant to his father, then he is lower than a devotee who, it comes from any type of birth, but is fixed in mind, word, deeds on service to the Lord for the pleasure of the Lord. And so he's better than a Brahmana because he can purify, or she can purify their whole family, whereas the Brahmana can't even purify his own self. And this is something that is most relevant when we talked about these mystic cities, because what is the purpose of anything that we do? Anything that we do in the service of the Lord, anything that we do is for the pleasure of the Lord. And we reflected on this when I came to Krishna consciousness. And I remember I would sit in a lecture with His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and he would speak and we'd be blown away. And during the lecture, he had a tendency to, what we thought, make up words. And I remember a friend of mine and we were talking one day, we said, that's Swami, he makes up so many different words. Is that word in the dictionary? And so one day I remember being in a lecture, and Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was speaking, and he was looking on one side of the room, and he said a word. And I thought, he's making up another word. And then he said, I said such and such, he said the word again, not this word, not that word, but this word. And he said, I hear your minds. And then he turned to the other side of the room and he looked directly in my eyes. And I said, oh, oops. And so what is the purpose of these particular cities? Well, Krishna expresses in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the ability in all beings. Mm-hmm. And so when one wants to be an instrument or is being used as an instrument, they can actually have the qualities of these particular these cities, because Krishna also is called Yogeshvara. He is the master of all these particular cities. And so I remember another pastime with Srila Prabhupada, and a reporter inquired from Srila Prabhupada, these different persons who travel from the East, they have these mystic potencies. What is your mystic potency? He said, you're looking at them.
Yeah, all these devotees.
All these devotees. These devotees were doing this and that and having these particular tendencies, and look at them. Look at their lives, examine their lives. This is my mystic potency. And that's the potency of the devotee being used as the instrument of Krishna. And that's a thing that was relevant to this particular verse and our particular lives and the situations that we've gone through during the past week.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
We were, wondering if we were going to have the opportunity to travel, or actually to be with my mother, Vraja Lila's mother, my mother-in-law. And at a certain point, she took a turn for the worse. And so Vraja Lila was speaking to her on a daily basis. She was chanting with her. And her mother she was Christian throughout her life and served, diligently through the church. And her mother was chanting on the phone with her. And at one point, she stopped speaking. And Vraja Lila's brother was actually feeding his mother ice chips. And at a certain point, his mother had her eyes closed and she opened her eyes, and then she sat up in the bed. And when she sat up in the bed, she said, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And Vraja Lila's brother was shocked. He said, where's this coming from? Where is this coming from? And so the point of the devotee that Prahlad Maharaj is actually expressing, the devotee has the ability, by the grace of Krishna, using them as instruments to actually purify not only themselves, but their family and those in their circle of influence. Yeah. And this was a quality that Vraja Lila exemplified, not only in the service of her mother, but for so many years in serving devotees. And I have to express that, we travel throughout the world, and everywhere that we've gone in the world, I would come in contact with at least one devotee. And there's no place that I've gone that this hasn't happened, where a devotee has expressed so much appreciation on how Vraja Lila has assisted them in their devotional lives. And this is the quality of one who is serving and for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna.
Yeah, this is Narada Muni speaks of this in the one of my favorite books actually is a Narada Bhakti Sutra, and I just love how he speaks about devotional service, Narada Muni, because he's just so practical. And so one of the sutras in the Narada Bhakti Sutra is how a devotee, a person that accepts, saintly people in their lives and accepts the spiritual teacher, and they get the mercy of the Lord. And so that we can say, practically speaking, when we talk about bhakti is very practical, in terms of when we practice, we can see some things happening in our lives. And in my case, being able to care for my mother in those last days really brought to life something my spiritual master shared with me in 1990, and I'm going to read that just because I somehow found this letter from him yesterday. I was like, oh, I didn't even know I had that. I was looking for something. I was looking for a marriage certificate to make sure that it is the 19th that was our date. And then I found this letter because I used to save the letters he would write to me, and it's in his own personal handwriting. And something he said, which really kind of made me just so much appreciative of Srila Prabhupada and appreciative of this path of bhakti. He says, because of us engaging in devotional service, he gave me an instruction, which is really important instruction, I think, for everyone in these times that we're living in. and he underlined this word. He said, never, and he underlined, never look back, because actually this planet is finished. All activities are going on now. It's just to see who is going where. These last years existing as we are now is just to prove time for people to declare themselves by how they move toward the divine or the demonic. Keep on doing your part in helping to prepare others to use their status. So this is a personal instruction in this letter. And then he says, you know, I think it was written on my birthday. So he was saying something to me on my birthday, 1990. He said, you are acting in the position of a Brahmin, first class, at least. And this part is very controversial. I'm going to read it anyway. He said, and perhaps better to say, as a guru, therefore, I have nothing to give you but a little encouragement and a ton of appreciation. However, since you are such a compassionate Brahmin, I am giving you my own Brahmin thread. We all love you very much. Thank you for being you. This was from my Guru Maharaj in 1990. And so, you know, the interesting thing about this, which I'm so grateful for, is that those last days with my mom, I was the person that was mostly alone with her. So I was the person that gave her birth out of her body, you know, birthed her soul out of her body to whatever her next destination is, because I was the one there that was chanting for her and reading for her and doing all the things that a Brahmana would do. So when we hear it, so in reading this verse, you know, it became very clear to me how important it is for us to really take this path of bhakti so very seriously in a very loving way, because this path of bhakti really gives us so many opportunities, you know, to connect in very deep ways with people on this planet. In this case, it was my own mom, where I could be with her and know she's not the body. I could be with her and totally be present to do things that perhaps if I didn't have this knowledge, I wouldn't be able to do. You know, towards the end, I made her a rose garland because that was her favorite flower. And she loved rose, and she left her body with this rose garland.
And that, of course, was a name also.
Yeah, rose. That was her name. And yeah, it's just so when we read about Devayanti and you know, the church, you know, whether Yayati, you know, we know the story. Yayati did marry her, even though he was a Kshatriya, and it wasn't so much accepted in those times. We see that Srila Prabhupada, in his kindness, you know, has given us these opportunities to transcend these limited conceptions of you know, whatever we may think about a person that's born Brahmana or born Kshatriya or born whatever it may be, and he's given us this opportunity for us to go so much deeper with the practice of bhakti, and the practice of showing others how wonderful this process is. Yes. So it's 2 minutes we have, so we want to check in with you.
And one last point, the Mriti Sanjeevani, in this particular mystic city that Shukracharya actually possessed, this is one of the mystic cities that devotees also possess. Shukracharya had the mantra, and Kacha was actually trying to receive that particular mantra to actually revive the actual dead. And so devotees also are given a mantra which actually revives the actual dead. As we see, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was elaborating that this planet is finished, and people are basically making their alignments on where they will actually go, whether they're connected with the divine or the demoniac. And so this particular mantra that devotees have been given, what is that particular mantra? What Vraja Lila gave to her mother.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare, hare. So we want to give you a minute if you have, 2 minutes for your reflection, because we know that it's so important for all of you to participate. So if someone has some reflection that you would like to share, or some questions or some feedback, or thank you very much. Ekavira can answer some question for you.
Vraja Lila can answer some question for you. And while we're waiting, the devotee Damayanti, she was a very simple, sweet, young devotee. She had a physical condition. She was wheelchair bound for all of her life practically. And, her mother and father, they're truly saints. Her mother's life was dedicated to actually caring for Damayanti. Her mother's name is Julian Yatra. And father's name is Bhuvrit Prabhu. And they're so special devotees, and they, were exemplary caretakers and parents. And we really, really are inspired by them, and we really will miss Damayanti.
Yeah. Yes. Today we will connect with the family, because it was late last night and the ambulance had come and taken her to the hospital. So we haven't yet had an opportunity to speak with them. However, there is that loss, of course, and for a parent, it's even, I think, more of a loss when you lose a child. That was their only child. And they cared for her, like Ekavira Prabhu said, because, she was ill for a long time. Her body was not so well. However, there was recently a Rath Yatra here in Gitanagari, very small for the community. And she was reading from about Lord Jagannath during that festival. So that was a part of her offering. So we know she's very much cared, she is being cared for by by Damodar and surely by Lord Jagannath also. So she's blessed. So if there's no questions or comments, then we will end the class, because we normally go over and we don't want to go over.
There's a lot of comments in the chat.
Oh, yeah. We saw something from Henry. Let's see if there's any question in the chat. Beautiful. Yeah, thank you very much for, anniversary. So many things are happening. It's so beautiful. We have death and we have life and we have, commitments. This whole verse is all about being respectful. We learn how to respect each other
and appreciate
each other. And that's one thing I think I came away from with my mom, taking care of her like that, is how, I can't even think of a word that I want to use to express how wonderful devotees are. Devotees are so special, so special. I mean, there's a quick part of the story I'm going to share. Before I was able to go to Florida, and I thought my mom was going to leave her body before I got there, because my siblings were like, she's going to leave, she's going to leave. I called a friend in Florida. She's a disciple of Srila Radhanath Maharaj. This is just to show you how everything is so interconnected. She's a disciple of Srila Radhanath Maharaj, and I called her and I said, my mom is leaving. Can you please arrange for someone from Orlando to just take her a garland? Because I didn't want her to leave without something, from the Lord. And so the devotee tried her best. That was an evening, and somehow could not get in contact with anyone in Orlando. And she called me back a couple of hours later or so, she said, I'm trying everywhere. We can't find self-president. We can't, And I said, okay, no worries. She's not going to leave because she has to leave with something from the deities, something from somewhere. She won't leave. And she didn't. And so the next morning, though, this Prabhu called me. His name is Ram. He's also a disciple of Shilarana Maharaj and lives somewhere I think he lives in DeLand, I think in the place where Bhakti Charu Maharaj has his community. Anyway, he called me and he said, Mataji.
Which is a few hours away from.
Yeah, it's at least a couple of hours, an hour and a half away from where my mom was in this hospice place. And he said, in the hospital. And he said, the hospice rooms were in the hospital. He said, Mataji, I'm on my way to see your mother, the next day. And I was like, wow, Prabhu, thank you so very much. And I was like worried, how is he going to get in? Because they only allow 2 people in the room at a time. And then I was just like, let it go. Krishna, you got this. There's nothing I can do. I am getting on the plane, tomorrow morning. That's all I can do. So this Prabhu, he went there to this hospital, Cape Canaveral Hospital in Cocoa Beach in Florida. And he got to the room. Somehow they let him in the room. And he and my sister together, he showed my sister how to give my mother Tulsi water, in her mouth. And he brought Lord Jagannath and he said prayers for her. And all of this was before I even got there. So for me to see the interconnection between Radhanath Swami and Bhaktitirtha Swami, that even if I wasn't there, it was going to be taken care of because they had worked it, And so this just gives me so much faith in this process of bhakti, so much more faith, and so much more understanding of how, everything is going on beyond what we try to do, beyond what we think we can do. It's totally not in our hands at the end of the day, because Krishna has got it and he's got it through his representatives. And so just this, that part of the beauty of watching Bhaktitirtha Maharaj and Bhaktitirtha Swami and Shilarana Maharaj work together with their people was quite beautiful for me. So thank you guys so very much. And thank you, Hare Krishna, Jagadishwara, Nimai Das. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Haribol, Angel. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hey, Prabhu, Vraja Lila Mataji, Prabhu, thank you very much for your lively presentation. Happy anniversary. And it's all tied in together. Krishna is real. And there's no difference between the gurus. It's all connected. Thank you very much for reminding us of that.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good day. See you tomorrow. Another day in Krishna consciousness. And thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you all for being there.
And thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Jai Gauranga.
Chila Prabhupada ki